In this daily millionaire news, we are going to change it up a little bit, and we're actually going to talk about someone that we likely all know, but I bet most of you didn't realize that his initial millionaire status came from some unexpected source. So in this case, I'm actually talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, famous actor, governor of California, cheater, right? He cheated on his wife, and just an interesting guy. Good morning. How are you? But in this case, what I found interesting is I did some research on Arnold, and his story is pretty interesting. It actually starts with real estate investing. So just got some notes on them. Let's kind of go through them and really share what I think are some lessons learned for all of us. So first off, if you didn't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was not born in the U.S. He was born in Europe, very poor country, in 1947. He didn't actually come to the U.S. until 1970. You may know this. He came here basically as a professional bodybuilder. He had won Mr. Olympia several years in a row. Came here with a nest egg of about $27,000, which, if you appreciate, in 1970, that was that was not bad, right? That was definitely six figures adjusted for inflation. But one of the things that I liked about his story that I read was um, he thought it was crazy that people in LA were happy renting, right? He talked about coming over here as a young man at the age of 25, I think it was, um, or 23, and really thinking about why is everybody okay renting, right? He had not, even though he grew up very poor, I mean, a moment in his youth was buying a refrigerator, right? The family getting a refrigerator. So that tells you where he came from, was a big deal. So one of the first things he did with his nest egg of $27,000 while working out at a Venice gym was he bought a 6 unit building. He bought it for $214,000. Obviously had a loan on it, but he lived in one of the units and rented out the other five. Today we would call this house hacking. He didn't know any better. He didn't have any great wizards or anything around him. He just knew, in his opinion, that being a renter um, was wasting money. For a quote from his article, he thought people were throwing away money being renters. So he wanted to buy the building. He lived in Unit 6, I believe it said, and rented out the other five. Lo and behold, a year later, he sold that 6 unit building for $360,000. So clearly, he had good timing. Nobody's arguing that. But again, he bought it for 214, sold it for 360, and instead of taking the cash, right, being hit with taxes, he did what was called a 10, or still is called a 1031 exchange, avoiding taxes, increasing future value, depreciation. All of this 10 years before he was a working actor. So realize that, yeah, some of us may be thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger took his movie money and that's how he became a successful real estate investor. Quite the contrary. Contrary. Oh God, I can't say that word. Um, so he sold that for 360. Bought a 12 unit building. Sold that several years later. Bought 36. Sold that and bought a 100 unit building. Right. So by the time he was 25, he was a multi-millionaire. And again, by 25, he's still 10 years away from being a working actor in Southern California. He had a small part, I think, by this point at Conan the Barbarian, just a small role. But again, when we think Arnold Schwarzenegger, some of us might think he had movie money and he took movie money and somebody else invested it. Quite the contrary. He was a multimillionaire because of real estate, because he didn't like the idea of renting, and he kept efficiently using his profits and doing 1031 exchanges. He lived in his buildings that he owned. Um, One of the things that he gives big credit to is when he went on auditions, which eventually we all know is where his career took him. He could be picky. He didn't have to act desperate because he had money in his pocket, right? He could be very picky. He gave the fact that he would be on auditions and everybody else is freaking out, and he was calm, cool, and collective. Obviously, knew he had an accent he had to work on, but really played that strength and his confidence to his credit. Just to know how the story ends today, again, given all the entities I'm sure that are involved, is probably hard to estimate. But people estimate that he is involved directly in over $300 million of real estate across the country. Some of the highlights that I found were he bought and sold a building in Santa Monica. He bought it for 450K, sold it years later for 2.3. And then the big hitter, at least the one that I found, I'm sure there are others, he made over $7 million buying and selling a Nevada office building. So again, he has definitely he's definitely a real estate investor. I mean, you may think of him as the actor in Terminator and Pumping Iron and all of these other things, but his life was set up by investments he made in his 20s. And really, why I thought I would record this is because what can we all take from what he did, right? So first off, he busted his butt before he came to the U.S. and he saved $27,000, right? He lived below his means. He worked his butt off. He won some competitions. He didn't spend his winnings. He saved, 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 right? If you watch this channel, watch the One Rental at a Time story. What do I talk about? Bust your butt during the day, live below your means, and save so you can invest later. Second is he took action, right? He moved to California from Europe and he didn't like the idea of renting, so he bought a building, lived in one unit, rented out the others. As prices appreciated, he had took the opportunity to do 1031 exchanges. He didn't cash out, go buy a car, go do all these other things. He just kept his capital, efficiently working and trading up to bigger and bigger and bigger things. So again, I think there's a lot of things that Arnold's story before he was a working actor that gets lost in his story now, and I think we should all go back and look at it and celebrate. And he's not doing anything that we don't talk about on this channel. Find out what you're good at, bust your butt during the day, research markets, make acquisitions, off hours. Let time help you. Again, obviously, clearly in his story, he let time be his friend with appreciation with Southern California real estate and empire. And then once you have that, it gives you the freedom, in his case, to be picky and look at different roles and things of that nature. So in the end, I think there's something for all of us to take away from Arnold's story. I'd love to hear from you. If you have other people that you think have an interesting story, do me a favor, leave comments below. I'd love to read about them and maybe share them on future channels. But again, it's just funny. It starts with a 6-unit building, goes to 12, then 36, then 100. I didn't know it. I didn't know this is. I didn't have any idea until somebody sent me a link about Arnold's story that this happened. Like you, I thought he made his money in movies, endorsement deals. I had no idea he was a multimillionaire by the time of 25, long before he was a working actor. So, shout out to working hard, knowing what you're good at, saving money, living below your means, using your capital efficiently. If I had a way to get him the book, I would send him the One Rental at a Time book. Not that he'd read it, but I'd still like to send it to him. So in the end, that's the daily millionaire news. We will do this again tomorrow. Just so you know, I am uploading an interview today that I completed at 7 a.m. with Michael Butler, who is second time on the channel. He's going to talk about how he went from wholesaling his first deal to a 6-figure year. And talk about the ups and downs of doing that, use of technology and not. And then on top of that, we are just about to jump out to Fresno later today to go look at 5 or 6 projects. So hopefully I'll be able to do some recordings about deals we're looking at and the like. So in the end, enjoy your day. And of course, we will talk to you tomorrow. Have fun. Bye.